This is what this beautiful edging looks like. A lovely picot edge at the very bottom with the line of crossed strands right above it. It is quite stretchy, as you see, but it doesn't stretch too much, and when we stop stretching it, it comes back to its shape, so that's a good thing. It doesn't look as nice on the wrong side of the work, so here's the edging, but it doesn't look bad either, so it will make a nice border for any project, whether it is reversible or not. Now let's see how we can make it. The edging is done in just 4 simple rows, and it starts with the regular long tail cast on. So cast on any number of stitches. I'm going to cast on just 10 to make a small swatch. Okay, 10 stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Right, now turn your work, take the other needle in your right hand, and the first row is going to be the most interesting one. It might seem a bit intimidating, but I'll show you everything slowly, and you will be able to do it without any issues at all. So it starts with a simple knit stitch, but we're going to knit the stitch through the back loop. So we insert the tip of the right needle from right to left into the stitch with the yarn at the back of the work, of course, as we always do for knitting. And then we wrap the needle and pull the stitch through, so that's knitting through the back loop. Now we're gonna make a stitch, but we're gonna make it in a very unusual way. We're gonna make a wrap that goes around the cast on edge. And here's how we do it. We move the tip of the right needle down and to the back of the cast on edge, like this. See, I go down and to the back. Then wrap the working yarn around the tip of the right needle. And you can do it with your left hand or your right hand, doesn't matter at all. And then you move the tip of the needle with the wrap on it from under the cast on edge and to the front of the work. So this way we made a new stitch, but we made it from under the cast on edge. So this is the tricky part, but it's not complicated at all, and I'm going to show you again. But between these unusual stitches, we're going to knit one stitch through the back loop again, just like this. So knit one through the back loop, then go under the cast on edge, get that wrap, pull it to the front of the work, and keep it on the right needle. Knit one through the back loop, make that unusual stitch. Knit one, make that stitch, and keep going until you get to the last stitch of the row. So knit one, and now I'm gonna make that last unusual stitch just like this, and I knit the last stitch through the back loop. Aside from this unusual making one stitch, there is one more thing that happened in this row. We almost doubled the number of stitches. As you see, we have quite a few stitches right now on the needles, and that's totally fine. We'll deal with those extra stitches in the third row. But before we get there, we need to work the second row of the pattern. The second row is not complicated at all. We start by knitting one stitch through the back loop. And then we bring the yarn to the front of the work and slip the next stitch. And make sure that we slip the stitches, those unusual stitches that were made from wraps around the cast on edge. So when you turn your work like this, you will see that this stitch is longer. And this is the stitch that should be slipped. Now we knit the next stitch through the back loop, and then we bring the yarn to the front, slip one, and bring the yarn to the back again for knitting through the back loop, just like this. And keep going until you get to the last stitch. I'm slipping the last unusual stitch, and I knit the last stitch of the row through the back loop. We already can clearly see this lovely picot edge, even though it is the wrong side of the work. One more thing that I want to note, as I was testing this edging, I noticed that because we are knitting these stitches through the back loop, we are twisting them, right? They kind of make the edging tighter. If you want to add more stretch to the edging, for example, you're making a shawl that is circular and you need the edging to be quite loose, then knit those stitches through the front loop as usual, not through the back loop but through the front loop. That's a little tip, but remember to slip the unusual stitches between them. Okay, so now we get to the third row of the pattern, and this is the row when we get rid of those extra stitches. Not really get rid of them, but we would turn them into that lovely pattern that we see on the edging. So it starts with the regular knit stitch, knit one stitch, and then knit 2 stitches together through the back loop. And at this point, make sure that the first stitch that is sitting on your left needle is that long stitch, the unusual stitch, the one that we slipped in the previous row. And then you insert the tip of the right needle from right to left into both these stitches, the long stitch and the regular stitch, and knit them together through the back loop. And that's what we're gonna do up to the end of this row. Knit these 2 stitches together, and always make sure that the long stitch is first. And the last pair of stitches. Now when we look at the needles, we would see that the number of stitches got back to where it should be, to the number of stitches that we cast on. So I have 10 stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that's right. So after this row, count your stitches to make sure that you are on track and you don't have any extra stitches or any missing stitches. Okay, now turn your work, and we're gonna work on the last row of this pattern. The last row is just knitting all stitches the usual way through the front loop. We just knit stitches one by one, and we do it mostly to add a bit of decoration to the edging, but also to kind of separate it from the main pattern of the project. So this row will create a ridge that's gonna separate the edging from the main pattern. That's how this ridge looks, and the edging itself. As you see, we get that nice edging, we got those strands, and we got the ridge that separates the edging from the pattern. Now that the border is finished, we can move on to working on the project itself. Because the border is separated by the ridge, it will work great with any stitch pattern you decide to use. To read this tutorial as a set of step-by-step photo instructions, go to 10rosaday.com/crisscross-cast-on-border. To download it as a PDF, join the club at 10rosaday.com/club. Thank you for watching this video and have a wonderful week. I'll see you in the next tutorial.